You're listening to the RE Social Podcast with your hosts, Andrew and Vince from OnV Invest. For more information, go to onvinvest.com.
What's up, you guys? Today, we have our friend, our buddy, Joe Ramos.
Very special guest.
Yes. You know, we have two Portuguese names on the show. Just wanted to start it off with that. We got Ramos and Rodriguez.
Oh, okay.
So odd one out is McCormick. Get out.
Made the Mick the minority.
Yeah. Minorities. And my water.
Well, it's good to have you, man. Quick little backstory. Joe's been coming to our stuff for a while. He's a big dog doing his own thing, which is awesome. Really good with flips, STR, LTR. We're going to get into all that out-of-state investing. So we're going to try to cruise through a lot. As Vince and I do have a coaching call in about an hour and a half. So we're just going to hit it hard and fast. So Joe, tell us and the audience a little bit about your backstory, how you went from like just, nothing to investing in real estate. What are you doing now? What was that journey like?
Oh, man. All right. So that could take a little while.
10 seconds. Go.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it. This is super fun. We just did a nice little cold plunge. And so that was really good to kind of get us going and started for this podcast. So basically how I started was back in 2008. I bought my first house when I was 21 years old, and I was working in the car business. I was selling cars, and basically, my family friend, tax preparer. He's a friend of my parents, and he told me, hey, you should probably do something to try and help, mitigate your taxes. And so, I was like renting a place with some friends and said, hey, if I bought a place, would you guys, want to move in with me? So basically that's how I got into real estate. And I bought that house in 2008 in Riverside, where I was born and raised for, $220 something thousand. And I put $6,800 down, did an FHA loan. My dad is very handy, so he taught me how to do a lot of things. So he helped me, build a patio cover and do a lot of the work ourselves. And so I ended up renting out 2 of the rooms to some friends of mine that I was living with, because when we were living at a place, I was basically taking the money to the bank and putting it into the landlord's bank account. And so I was like, this is ridiculous. And so bought that house. It was like $1,350 a month. I rented out each room for $500 a month. And then everything just clicked after that. And I'm like, okay, I got to do more of this. So what I did was I kind of built a team, because I had my tax guy, and then I found a loan guy, and then I found a realtor. And so a couple of years later, I ended up buying another house. And what I'll tell people is like, things aren't always going to go the way that you think, right? So I ended up trying to buy another house for myself to move into that was really cool. It was really big, had a pool and all this stuff. But that loan officer that I had at the time, he actually steered me incorrectly. And so I ended up not getting that property. And that's when I found the new realtor that I had. And he had this loan guy who was awesome. And I love him. I've used him tons of times. I wish that he would do stuff out of state. But so I ended up, that house fell through. I ended up having to buy a house and putting 20% down on it. But, I bought that house back in 2012 and for $185,000. And it was just like, God was obviously looking after me, because this was such a better deal. And even though I had to put more percentage down, I still have that house to this day, and it's worth, close to $675,000. And I've never lived in it. I've always rented it out, and it's just been rented out. And then after that, a couple years later, I bought another house, and I moved into that one. And I rented out the original house. And then my goal was to buy a house at the beach by the time I was 30. So I did that as well. And that just all that stuff basically propelled me to really get involved in real estate. So I just kept on working my butt off. I didn't go on vacations. I worked every weekend for the first 10 years of my career. So I was working 12, 14-hour days, and I just kept on saving my money, and I kept on buying houses and just renting out rooms and living in them and moving in them. And then it came to a certain point where I was able to actually get out of this career where I was making, almost $300,000 a year, because I bought all these properties. And then, I just kept on learning. And I mean, that's the thing, like you talk about the coaching programs, is I never did those. I kind of learned the hard way. And now I do some coaching myself as well. But
Nice.
I will tell people that
Mhm.
that is something that's going to help, that would help fast track you, because it took me a while realistically to get where I was at, because I was in that business for 15 years, working really hard
Mhm.
and making some good money, but I was saving my money and I was investing my money instead of blowing it away.
Yeah.
And so, but I feel like I could have gotten there faster if I would have actually had somebody to kind of show me what to do. I mean, my parents aren't stupid, but they are just very risk adverse, and they don't take risks like
Right.
I have. And I think that's another thing that I always tell people too, is take a risk, but it's got to be an educated risk, right? So but that's where people like, we all come in, is that we've done certain things. Like, even I was telling my wife earlier today before I came and saw you guys, it's like, honestly, like this last project that I had, I mean, I've done, I don't know, over 30 or so transactions, maybe even more. But this one got a hold of me, and you're not going to win them all, right? And so that's the thing, is like, you could really learn from some other people's mistakes.
Yeah.
So
No, that's great, man. I love that, and you're also vulnerable about like, yo, it, took a beating on the last deal. I'd love to even go into that, like talk wins and losses. I think, obviously, I think you will, and the audience will learn a lot more from the losses than any win. It's like, oh yeah, landed this deal, is easy. It's appreciation 6 times now.
Yeah.
Like that's great, but it's like, let's talk about like, what are the lessons in that loss that you had? I think that's, a ton of value. Yeah, go for it. Like, let's deep dive on that.
So what I would say on that, like something I even posted the other day on Instagram, and it was like something that I even told people, it's not about gloating. It's about, like people will say it's time in the market, not timing the market. And that really is true. Okay. But you also have to know like what your strategy is going to be from the get-go, right? So for example, that one that we're just talking about, that one was a little bit different because it wasn't a rental property that you could, either you can have multiple, I mean, you could have multiple exit strategies. And when I bought it, the good thing was that I got a great deal on it. And that's what I always tell people, is that.
Which property was this?
So this is in Atlanta. It's Jefferson. And I call it my boat because it's bust out another 1,000. Because seriously, even towards the end of that closing, I had to pay another $800 just for some termite thing that the people wanted, you know? And so it was just like all the time, like every time. So what went wrong there was the fact that I was trying to treat it like some of the other deals that I'd done, right? So I have 3 rental properties out there in Georgia that I bought, and I, had somebody kind of fix up, didn't need a lot of work. The second one, my dad and I actually flew out there. That was the first time I stopped actually like working for somebody. So it was really fun. We stayed at the house and we fixed it ourselves.
You lived at the house and fixed it up at the same time?
Yeah. So we were there for like 2 weeks.
That's kind of cool.
And it was really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, my dad is very talented. My dad is like super, super talented. He's a master craftsman. I mean, he's built cabinets, like a whole entire
man's man.
kitchen, well, my parents, the way that they grew up, because like, you're saying we're Portuguese. My dad's 100% Portuguese. And so he grew up on a farm. They didn't have like tons of money or whatever. So, when him and my mom met, like literally like my dad, all he had was this money in this shoebox. My mom will say this story, right? It's so funny.
I can relate.
And so they actually met out here in Orange County. And I always give them crap because I wanted to grow up at the beach. And so that's why I always like wanted to like work my butt off to get to the beach. And so they moved to Riverside back in 82 and bought a house, in 82. And the funny thing is that all this seller financing is coming up now. Well, my mom actually negotiated seller financing in their first house, and it was $59,000. And she negotiated with the sellers, and because the interest rates were 18% at the time.
Which was probably normal.
Yeah. That was like the highest they ever were. Right. And so she got it to like, I think 12.5 or whatever is what she was saying. And so they negotiated that. And then a couple of years later, she negotiated down, and then they paid it off really fast, but my point is, it's like, it's the work ethic and working hard. Like my parents definitely taught me the value of a dollar, because I started a business when I was a kid, recycling cans and bottles. I mowed lawns, but it's because my parents taught me that. The only thing I would tell them is that they didn't take enough risk, because could you imagine if they would have bought, and I mean, because they bought that house in 82 and they bought another house in 87 when I was born. And
Did they keep the one in 82?
Yeah, they still have it. Yeah, they still have it. But I mean, you're not doing anything with it.
Right.
If they would have refinanced it when I refinanced some of my houses and at 3% or 2.5%, I mean, you could have done something else with that money. But I think that's the thing where coaching or, talking to other people comes into play, because you don't know what you don't know. And you're maybe a little bit like, conservative about it. So I'm getting off on a tangent, but basically, what I didn't know about this project that went haywire was it was actually like my first flip, even though I had bought these other houses and flipped them into rentals, because I had bought them cash, refinanced them, got all the money back, and then rented them out. But this one I was going to flip, but this city was a subsidiary city of Atlanta, and they have these crazy rules and the permit process. And so the city kind of screwed me big time. I had to end up rewiring the whole house because of, they're evil and corrupt, and I didn't know what I didn't know. Right. And so I think that's the thing, is that really knowing like your scope of work and knowing like what you are intending for this property and kind of doing your research a little bit more is where I failed in that aspect.
And that was just mainly the city regulations and location.
Yeah. So it's East Point, even though it's Atlanta, but East Point is a subsidiary city of Atlanta, and they're just, I mean, you can't put it any other way that they're corrupt, and they want their money. And so I ended up getting the electrical work done on the house. And this is funny. I got it right around when I got married last year, and we were on our honeymoon, and my electrical guy, goes, and he didn't even know, because I mean, even though he does all stuff all around Atlanta, this one little pocket just happened to be that. And he replaced the panel, he got the permit, but then the inspector goes and walks through the whole entire house and sees all this other stuff getting worked on. Nope. No, you need to get a permit for this. You need to get a permit for this. You need to get a permit for this. And it's like what I did before, it was like, my dad and I worked on a lot of stuff ourselves. So it wasn't really a big deal. Like, but you got a different county, you got a different city, and that's the thing that I will tell people to look for. Even with the rentals, like I would never do a rental in Fulton County, which is main Atlanta, but my rentals in Noonan, they're more conservative, because even though, yes, Georgia is a very conservative area, Fulton County is not as landlord friendly, but Coweta County is. And but that's where I was doing those other ones, and I had no problems with the last 3 houses, no big deal, but I didn't have to go do a panel on some of those houses. I go do that. And then boom, I opened up a can of worms, and now it's like, but now I know. So now it's like, okay, I got another house in that area, but I know what I'm going to be going through. Right. And I'm more prepared now. And so that's something that I would kind of tell people, is like doing your research, or even reaching out to other people, just like we were talking earlier, reaching out to agents who are investors as well, or other investors. Like the guide that I have right now, we have 3 under construction currently, and we're working on trying to ramp up to 20 a year. But I found this flipper who lives somewhat locally. He lives locally, but just not in Atlanta, but a little bit outside of Atlanta. And so basically we're partnering with him, and we're paying him 10% of the profit. And now he's just overseeing everything. So I don't have to go out there and touch anything. I mean, we're going to go out there towards the end of July, because Floor and Decor is actually going to be doing a pilot program with me. They're going to be videotaping me. And I was put in this raffle from the gal that I work with over here in Huntington Beach. And so now they're going to be basically doing like a HDTV type of thing, I guess. I don't know. But they're going to be like, we're going to be walking through some of the projects that I did, some of the projects that we're working on. And then we're going to be, putting me on like their social media and their website, which is really cool. Awesome. So now I get to go out there, more of an enjoyable thing instead of a stressful thing. Yeah. And because this guy, I found him through these issues that I had, and he doesn't, he was using his own money, and he doesn't want to do that. He was working on the projects himself. And so it's really cool that it kind of worked out, right?
So you're bringing him value, and that you're bringing what the money to buy the deal, and he's bringing the labor.
Yeah. So he is basically our project manager. So we're paying him 10% of the profits of the project, and he's overseeing all these projects, and he's happy because he doesn't have to physically do anything. And now he's just hiring. He's kind of like our contractor in a sense, and hiring the subcontractors. And it all happened because of some issues that we had on the property, because I was calling around different agents trying to figure out, okay, what the heck, have you guys encountered this? And so even though, yes, it sucks that this happened, I mean, obviously it was a godsend, and now it's making it so much easier for us to scale, and he's happy and we're all happy. You know what I mean?
So you found this contract that you're partnering with now that's going to make your life way more easy and passive because you had a deal that went bad. And
yeah, well, because of some issues that we had in a project that we didn't know about the city, right? And so I called around like 10 or 12 different agents of houses that had recently been sold or were currently up for sale, and saying, hey, have you guys had these kind of issues? Have you had, no, we don't know anything. It's like, and it's so funny because obviously these agents are not, very well educated. And so finally I found this one, and now she's one of our agents that we're actually using.
Yeah, of course.
It was awesome. Yep. And she does flips herself. And so she's like, oh, I love Josh. He's great. He does, he's really, and he really is well organized, and he was doing it himself, but he was just using his own money or family money that he was raising. And then he was doing some of the physical labor himself, but he was only doing like 1 or 2 flips a year.
Right.
And so now it's like, okay, cool. If we can ramp up to like 20 flips and he can get paid 10% on the profit, he doesn't have to do backbreaking work.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like, sweet. Yeah. Stoked, so
that's something that we're just now starting to get really into and hitting our stride on, is finding those win-wins. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People was one of those books where years ago I read it, and that was like the big takeaway. And now I'm really starting to do that, where I'm building it into the contract, building it into like incentives, and because that's how people work. And then finding like where you can bring value to somebody who's bringing value to you in a different way. That's awesome, man. That's
100%.
I can't wait to see. We should do another podcast in like 5 years, because it's just going to be exponential from this point. Because you've done all the hard work. 2008, like house hacking, basically. That's pretty cool, man. So you've been in this game for a long time.
Hey, so I want to, that's pretty good. I want to keep it, I like to track usually what the guests have done over the years. That's like my favorite thing, because a lot of people who are listening are like, younger audience, and they don't have a lot of deals like us. So I want to go back to the start. And then, so you said the first deal was 2008, 279K, $6,800 down.
It was 228.
228
that I bought it for.
Yeah.
And it was, like $6,800 down. That was the only deal I've ever done that was an FHA loan. And I was 21 years old, and I didn't know what I was doing. My parents thought I was crazy. Everybody thought I was crazy. It was in an HOA, and that's the only one that I have an HOA, which, I could tell some funny stories because I was 21, and you could probably guess, I think we're all similar personalities. I mean, I have a picture of me doing a keg stand in the backyard, before we built the patio cover and put all the dirt or the concrete back there. And, the houses were pretty close together because it was like a newer development. It was built in 97. And so yeah, I mean, and I had neighbors who didn't really love us very much because we were just doing our thing. And so
for the first deal, man, I wanted to ask, your because I think Michael Blanc, the real estate guy, he calls it the law of the first deal.
Yep.
It really, things starts to change after you buy what was it that made you get into that game of getting that first house?
Yeah, I was gonna ask the same thing.
Yeah. So,
at 21.
Well,
like, it's crazy.
Okay. So I tell people the same thing. It's always, you just got to get into one, and then after that you can really do it. Like I taught my now wife before we got married how to get one too. But what made me get into this was because I was making decent money in the car business. So I started making, and it wasn't really anything crazy. It was like between $60,000 and $80,000 at the time, right? Which is obviously a lot more now. But I was making money. I was renting out a house with some guys down the street from the dealership, and I was the responsible one. And I was basically taking their money, and we're all taking it and putting into this dude's bank account. And mind you, when I was like 13 years old, I started a recycling business. So my dad helped me put trash cans at people's houses in our neighborhood, and they would put their cans and bottles in there, and I would take them down and get them recycled and make money. I mean, I mowed lawns. He let me push the lawnmower down the street, but also I screwed up the tires on the lawnmower. He made me pay for them. And I remember they were like $100 because I rode it too close to the concrete. So what it was is that my parents built in this work ethic. They didn't give me shit for money, but they built in this work ethic because they never gave me anything. They invested finally in one of my deals just recently. And I mean, it's like
20 years later.
Yeah, like it's been like a while. And so it's like,
That's funny.
because they are hardworking. They wanted to teach me how to work hard, and the same thing I want to do for my kids. And so I guess what got me into that was just the fact that I started making money, and they and my tax guy who's friends with them.
It's the tax thing. That's what it was. Huh?
So they've known him before I was born, and he's still, our tax accountant from today.
You guys can go.
And so he was like, hey, you might want to think about buying something to help you mitigate your taxes.
Interesting.
And so
the tax guy said buy real estate.
Yeah, well, because
That's
he'd also invested himself.
There you go.
And I mean, come to today, he lost his ass a lot too. Over the years, because he invested in real estate and business, and obviously 2008 kind of caught a lot of people, or whatever, the economy thing, caught a lot of people with their pants down. And fortunately, like it was an REO, and I bought it as an REO. They had the Obama credit, so I even got the $8,000 back on my taxes.
Right.
I mean, shoot, I was paying money in taxes, and that year I got 10 grand back. I was like, okay,
you're like, I'm rich.
Well, it just clicked, and you're like, okay, I got to do more of this.
Yeah.
So
that's so funny that you got into it because of a tax incentive.
Well,
that's interesting.
That's first. It all accumulated, right? Because I had my friends who we were one of the guys I worked at the dealership with was renting. We were renting a house together, and then one of my buddies from high school, and so that's why I was like thinking about getting a house. Would you guys want to move over here? It was kind of a totally different area of Riverside, but it just kind of worked out, and it was like, oh, and then after that, I was like, okay, wow, well. Because I'm working so much, and I was working 12, 14-hour days. I didn't have weekends off. I didn't go on vacation. I didn't spend my money. I would go to Vegas here and there during the week because it was cheap, and I was off during the week. And then I was like, okay, well, I got to save up to do more. So I'd be hitting up when I found that new loan guy after the whole situation on the second house, because he worked with my realtor. I was like, okay. So I'd call them, hey, can I buy something yet? He's like, no, you're not making enough. You can't buy anything. Okay. So
he's honest,
because I worked for commission. And so I just started trying to work harder and make more money. And then that way I could buy another house. And then I just kind of, okay, so 2008, and then it was like 2012. Okay. So even though it was like 4 years later, it seems like a lot of time, but now hindsight's 2020. If I could have bought 5 or 10 of those at 100, I mean, freaking 200 grand or whatever. I mean, are you kidding me? To be worth $600,000-$700,000 now. And then the third one was like, oh, okay, finally I'm going to buy something cool for myself. So it's this big house, 3-car garage. I could park 15 cars. It's like, 14,000 square foot lot with a badass view, and it was only 340,000. I mean, the thing's like worth like 800 grand now. And then I'm like, okay, well, shoot, I kind of like got in a fight with my job, new manager. So I'm like, all right, well, I wanted to move to the beach anyways. So I got a job in Long Beach. So I bought my house here in Huntington, and it was like, oh my gosh, thank goodness I did it then, because it was so cheap compared to now.
What year was that?
2017. So
okay, hold on. We got to keep going with this. You guys are on crack cocaine.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
We did just do a cold plunge and a quick shot of whiskey.
Yeah,
so we're extra jacked up.
I wanna highlight a couple of things that Joe did mention. Since these guys are on crack, they're so fast. So one of the things was that he did say that it was very interesting to me is that your dad made you pay for the tire that you bruised, it was $100, right? So it is very important for us to know that, I have a niece, and, her name is Tanya, and, she's always like, hey, I want to buy this cute dress or whatever, it's like $50. Who gives a crap, right? But I'll always make her do something. So recently, I have a lot of bots on my social media account, right?
Yeah.
So she went and removed 8,000 bots and she got $100 for it. But she's smart. So she figured out with like what was flagged, and Instagram just tells you it's kind of flagged. She just made one click and then made it disappear. She spent 2 minutes and made $100, right?
Nice.
But
That's awesome.
the lesson is not that she made $100. The lesson is I'm trying to teach her that you have to do something
Things have to be earned.
It has to earn, and
Yeah.
she's very smart. She got a full ride into Georgia Tech, and she's going there for free. She's even getting more
She's
credits.
hard work.
She's super smart, right?
Yeah.
So, but I wanted her to understand because her sister, which is my and her mom, my sister, we grew up not very rich, like like you guys. So and we didn't have like a lot of money growing up. So we're trying to educate the kids because they are definitely not growing up poor like us. They have things, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys know this, but 70% of the wealth is lost, I think, is 1 or 2 generations, and 90% is gone in 3rd generation.
Yep.
So if I don't teach them anything, her kids will be poor. Like
Correct.
it's just guaranteed.
Yep.
So, it's very important to keep the values. Like if you support Christian organizations, in which my family does too, and we like to feed poor people and stuff like that, you would want to hold on to certain assets, and then you can actually help people. Like, if not, then it's like, it's all gone. And then what are you going to do? Then you got to figure it out again, But anyway, so that's a good lesson I learned. And then which you brought up. I want to go back. So you said 2008 first deal, and then you had to wait 4 years to do the second deal. What was going on there?
Well, I mean, it takes so this one thing, like I guess people are either surprised about or don't realize is that, okay, because I was doing it all on my own, I had to make enough money to qualify for both properties. Right. And so what had happened was I was trying to buy this other property that I wanted to move into that was going to take me a lot of fixing up. It had a pool. It was huge. Like it was a freaking cool house, but it fell through because I'd refinanced the first house through an FHA streamlined refinance. And the lender was like, oh yeah, you'll be fine. You'll be able to buy the next house. And it's like, nope. Underwriting hit at the end and said, no, you have to live in that house for a year because it's an FHA loan. And so that's what happened with that lender and why I dropped him and why I didn't get that second house. But it was kind of a good thing because I ended up getting that other one, even though I had to put 20% down instead of only having to put like 5% down. It was a really good buy and probably my best buy. But, I had to be able to qualify for both loans because I'm doing it all myself. It was just me. So that's why I kept on having to talk to my lender, and like why we talk about building a team, right? Is that I have my tax guy, I've got my lender, I got my realtor, I've got all these people. And then, I'm like, okay, hey, can I buy another house? Nope, you can't qualify for shit. Okay, you can qualify for $100,000. Okay, well, we can't buy anything then. So then, it's like, okay, after, because what I would do was I would talk to both of them at the same time before I filed my taxes. And what I had to do was basically take a little bit of a hit on my taxes at times and pay a little bit extra and not take the write-offs so I can qualify for more.
Yeah.
And then another thing I forget to tell people all the time is that my dad taught me to invest into a 401k. So with my job, even though my job at the time didn't put anything in, I used that 401k to borrow against to buy some of these properties. So I would buy the property and borrow against my 401k because you could borrow up to $50,000, no more than half, and then up to $50,000. And it's basically a loan against yourself. So you're paying yourself interest back. And that was honestly, it was like the most genius thing that I figured out. And I told him my tax guy, and he's like, oh yeah, you could do that. I'm like, why didn't you tell me? Like, so it's funny, but you kind of like, I don't know, like you just learn things along. But my dad did tell me like, hey, you got to like be putting some money in a 401k, which I think now it's kind of, it doesn't make the most money, but it came in really handy. And I did that, I think 3 or 4 times,
Nice.
And so luckily I had the job to where, I would be able to pay the money back, on the monthly payments. And then I just pay it off in a lump sum because that's how you have to do it. So yeah, it's just kind of like working together and coordinating with the people on your team. And I think that would be like the fast track for people listening now is creating a team, finding good people to work with you together for what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I'm trying to break down a couple of the things because you guys know a lot of stuff, and I want to break it down for people. So the FHA stuff, what guys you're talking about, he's talking about, Joe's talking about, is you can do 3.5% down and move into a place, and you have to live in the property for a year, right? Now the I'm not telling you how to cheat the system, but the key word is intend to occupy. So you would have to intend to occupy. So if you move in, and your wife says, I'm going to divorce you tomorrow morning if you don't move into another home, you can leave the house because they're not going to be like, how dare you move that, right? So when you wanted to buy the second house, you could say, well, I wanted to live there, but my wife says she's leaving me in the morning. So I need to go to this nicer area, nicer property.
Well,
so that is one thing you could do. However, you cannot buy, if you had $1 million mansion in Newport Beach and you said, I'm moving into Bakersfield, 4-bedroom, 1-bedroom apartment, they'll be like, yeah, no, you're not doing that.
So I do have something to say on that. I mean, I did the FHA because of, timing and age and all this stuff. But I would say nowadays, I always advise people to at least do the 5% down conventional just because, and this is, because of competitiveness.
Sure.
When you're going to try and buy a property, it's going to look better when you're doing a conventional loan. You're going to have a little bit more like buying power in a sense, or instead of like FHA, because a lot of times people just no. I mean, like me personally,
Yeah, as the seller, we've seen those offers come in, and we're like,
You just assume
it has a moniker to it, like
well,
as opposed to like a guy who's like all cash, let's go. Like, all right,
well,
that's easier to do.
Not only that, when you do an FHA like appraisal and purchase and everything like that, there's just so much
way more red tape.
Yeah,
it's government
There's,
program. And government moves slow and cumbersome, and there's no competition.
There's another thing too, real quick, that you guys might not know is when you do an FHA, this is very important. You guys should be writing this shit down. So when you do a FHA loan, there is something called an upfront mortgage insurance premium, UPMIP, which is 175 basis points. Nobody tells you about this, which means if your loan is $1 million, you will pay an upfront cost of $17,500, non-refundable, gone forever, to do the FHA loan. And then on top of that, there is a PMI, which cannot be taken out for the first 11 years. So if your home value doubled in one day, you have to wait 11 years to drop the MI.
I didn't know that.
That's something that changed from when I bought mine originally.
It
wasn't like that. It wasn't like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that again, it goes back to my point of why it's like,
you should.
If you can just do the 5%,
do the 5%.
Don't do the
And
3.5.
if you can't do anything and you're just going to smoke weed in the basement, definitely do the FHA. It's better than doing nothing. Now, the reason I was asking you from 2008 to 2012 is not being, what are you doing for 4 years? Is because I wanted people who are listening to give them hope and understand, like, the first deal, second deal, third deal, it is going to be the most difficult deal that you do in your entire life. It just becomes so much easier after that. It is like, it's not hard for Drew and I to make 10 calls and raise 100 grand like in the next 10 minutes. It's not that difficult.
Right.
Was it difficult the first year we were doing? I would laugh at you if you said I can call people and ask for 100 grand. We will be begging people, give me 10 grand, please.
Yeah. Yep. That is 100% true, because I always tell this to people that, like, it always felt like such a struggle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because even though it's like that third house it was like 340,000. It was like, I was barely able to get it, and it's like, but it was like such a badass house. And now it's like, still like, now it's worth so much money. And then the one in, here in Huntington, that was 656. That's, worth like, almost 1.4, 1.3 and a half or whatever. And it was like,
about that in 2017
at January of 2017.
Hey, Joe, hold up. So the second deal, 2012, the 185,000 you put toward 20% down. Was that an out of state or here?
No, that was here in Riverside.
Oh, you're in Riverside. Okay.
So my goal was to buy 3 in the same area.
Okay.
And then I wanted to move to the beach.
So you bought the second one, and then you had the money saved up because you had 4 years. And then the third deal was 2014.
2014.
And it was Riverside?
340.
Yep, also 340, and you put another 20% down?
No, I did. I only like 80 grand ish, somewhere on there. So it was like, I think it was like a mixture, like around like 5.
Okay.
Right. You know what I mean?
5%. Okay. So you were able to buy that with just personal funds. You were saving money,
So,
right?
so like I had told you guys earlier, it was a 401k. So I took out a loan.
Okay.
Part of it. So I had some personal money, and then I had the 401k that because
Nice.
I had kind of like done that. I was like, oh,
You're just stretching it, just one man show, just doing what you can. Yeah, I respect that.
You know, guys, the 401k stuff he's talking about is pretty important. So the house that we're talking from right now is a podcast room in my house. My house was 1.1, and I did borrow from my 401k. The rest was gifted by my sister, so she has equity in this house. But you know, it is up to $50,000 or half of what your 401k has, whichever is lower. So if you have 80 grand, you can borrow up to 40 grand. Steve, or good buddy Steve, owns a couple of properties with us. Is it 2? No, he has 3. The second property that he bought, he had 80 grand. He was able to borrow 40 grand from his 401k. So 401k is a great program.
Mm-hmm.
So 3 houses, 2014. What happens next?
So 2017. So basically, I moved my job out to Long Beach, and I was living at my house in Riverside and renting out some of the rooms. But then I was also like driving out to Long Beach, and I was my buddy and I got an apartment in Long Beach because it was just, dude, like the drive sucked, and I worked 12-hour days most of the time, or you didn't even know when you're getting off work, so whatever. So he and I had a 2-bedroom apartment there on 2nd Street in Long Beach, and that was fun and everything, but it got old. So I was like, okay, I need to find something out here. I was actually wanting to move to San Clemente because my family and I have a timeshare there. And I was going to move there, but the job took me to Long Beach. So I was like, okay, Huntington, obviously is cool. And so I ended up just kind of looking around. Like 2016, I was looking for something, and just basically I found this house, and we closed January 2007, or I closed January 2017. And then I rented out, that buddy who was renting.
What are the numbers?
So I bought it for $656. And I did the same thing again with the 401k, because I just kept on recycling that. I think I only put like, I don't know, $70,000 or $80,000 down or something like that, like nothing crazy. But what I ended up doing in 2000, right after COVID, I think like 2020. And that's what propelled me. This is the first time I actually ever took money out of a property. I'd never refinanced. Like that one of those places in Riverside was almost paid off. So I got something up in Big Bear. I bought a house up in Big Bear.
Refied everything?
No, so here, I'll go back.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, I'm going all over the place. But so I bought a place in Big Bear for an Airbnb.
Wait a minute. 2017, you bought the house.
Now you bought Big Bear.
After that is what?
I think Big Bear I bought in 2019.
So that's the next deal after the Huntington Beach home. And you're living in Huntington Beach now.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
And I was renting out both rooms, for like $800 or whatever.
Sure.
And then I got the place in Big Bear, like 2019, and then 2020 because I stopped working for like 10 months. I drove across the country. I drove all over the place because I finally needed a break because I was in the business for like 15 years and never taken vacation. Yeah. So I took 10 months off, but luckily somebody wanted me to come work. So I ended up going work in Newport Beach, BMW. And again, God looking after me because I was able to refinance Huntington Beach house at like 3.2 or something like that. Yeah. Took out $100,000. The payment went up $250. And that's when I bought the first house in Georgia as a rental. Nice. So I bought it cash. And so this is okay. This will go into like another thing that.
So this is before Big Bear.
This is after Big Bear.
So Big Bear, you already bought with.
I already bought
2019.
Yeah, I financed that one normal finance.
Okay.
Yeah. Normal finance, 2.5% interest rate.
And what was the numbers on that one?
So I paid for.
Wait, 2019, you were getting 2.5 interest?
Yeah, it was 2020 or 2020.
2020. It's got to be 2021.
2020.
Yeah.
2019, 2020.
No, not 2019.
Definitely 2020.
2021.
Yeah. I have to look at my phone to see. Like sometimes, I mean,
you should your nose. You got an Indian questioning you, bro. You should have known.
But I'm pretty good at these numbers. But okay, so I got that one for.
There is 0% chance that you got a 2.5% in 2019.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Because COVID-19 has not happened yet.
Got it. Okay. So yeah. So it was like beginning 2020 then.
Sure.
And it was 230.
Okay, sounds good.
And I really didn't need to do a lot because the guy did a really.
And you're doing short term on it.
Good job on it. Yes. Okay. So that was the STR. Cool little house. It's like 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom. My dad and I put up a barn door going into the bedroom. We painted the cabinets and did new countertops, but the guy had done a really good job on the flooring, the paint on the outside, the deck in the backyard.
The guy being the seller or
the seller, yes. Yeah, he really took pride in that house, and very well insulated and everything like that. I didn't really need it. I only painted one accent wall in the bedroom. But yeah.
Is that the same house where they put firewood on the gas fireplace? We just had this conversation outside. Sorry, guys. I'm totally sidetracking
so
again.
There's a fire pit in the backyard, and it is a propane fire pit. And I had a guest actually put wood on top of the propane fire pit and burn it. And funny enough, like they were supposedly military because they had asked for a military discount, blah, 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 blah. And I even had to have my cleaners. I paid them $40 to go over there and help them show how to use a fireplace and the heater. And
were they like 18?
I don't know, but it was weird because it was at a time that was not really that cold, but like, oh, we're from Texas, so this is kind of cold. 60s is the high mid 60s is kind of cold to us.
It's not like, cold in Texas.
It's not. I'm just.
It gets
that's
cold.
That's not cold at all. I mean, but no, that's a really cool little place. Like I love that place. It's like I call it the little romantic cabin. And so now I got a jacuzzi, and I really want to put a mural. My dad and I are going to build a fence and put a mural. So when you sit in the jacuzzi, it looks like you're looking over the Big Bear Lake.
That's cool.
Yeah, because we did a mural actually at one of our short-term rentals in Florida, which I'm sure we'll get to. But okay, so there's Big Bear. So I think the biggest thing that, like what you're saying, kind of helps you take off and propel is the money aspect, and how like after 3 or 4, you're like, oh shoot, like you can really take off. And so I took out $100,000 out of my house in Huntington, which I'd never taken out money out of any of the houses before. And I bought this house in Georgia cash because my friend, and this will go to probably help like the audience, is reach out to people who live in different areas, and they'll give you insight that you will not know. My friend moved out to Georgia about like 4 or 5 years ago. He moved out, and then he told me about this little town called Noonan. It's like 30 minutes outside of Atlanta. And he's like, hey, dude, he knows I'm in real estate. And he's like, you should check it out. So I was visiting one, April, and I didn't even go there, but I was looking at houses, and I'm like, okay, this house was like 130 grand. And then it like popped out. And so I get these notifications on my phone. It went under contract. Then it popped back on and said back on market, and it dropped by like 10 grand. So it was like 120. Okay. Well, if I can rent that out for $1,250 because I'm doing my math, I'm like, okay, so I offered $100,000 cash. And so I bought it, and then I ended up renting it out for like $1,325.
Nice.
And then
you got it for 100?
So I got it for 100. They gave me $3,600 back through because I negotiated during the after the inspection.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I
got it for like 96 in a sense, because I mean, it's cash. And then this was actually like my first private money lender. So my buddy's dad, who, the same buddy, his wife died from the COVID vaccine. So he ended up selling his house here in California, moving out onto my buddy's property because my buddy's got like 5 acres, and he had a detached living unit with the garage and everything like that, the garage and the living area. And so he moved out there, and then and my friend's like telling his dad, why don't you invest with Joe if you want to get into real estate? So he ended up investing with me. So he ended up giving me half of the money back. Then we did a cash out refinance DSCR loan, got all the money back. Our payment's $500 a month, and we're renting it for $1,325. So then,
and you have money back.
Yeah, we got like 80%.
Right. LTV.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing, man.
But the second one, so then he's like, oh, he loved it. So then then we got another one. Bought this one for $138,000 cash, and we even paid over asking. Okay, this was like a year later.
Where is this in Georgia?
Noonan.
And where is that relative to Atlanta?
So 30 minutes outside of Atlanta. It is southwest.
Southwest. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll introduce you to my sister. She's a realtor, but they've been living there for 30 plus years. But they're
north.
They're north.
Yeah.
They're living in the rich white neighborhoods.
Okay. Yeah, I know where they're at. Yeah. No, we'll have to definitely talk, because I mean, Georgia's awesome. Yeah. It's an awesome area. You guys should invest there. But obviously everything's got its own little pockets. But the only reason I knew about it was because of my friend. You know, and that's what I tell people. It's like, hey, if you know somebody that lives in an area in a different state, and maybe you don't know, but they know something you don't know, cool. And then so then we got that second one, and oh my God, that was the one that my dad and I, that was like when I was not working anymore, I flew my dad out with me. It was so fun. And funny story. So we my dad hadn't flown on a plane since before like 9/11. And so I totally forgot to tell him. And
About 9/11, he doesn't know.
he didn't know.
You're like on the plane. You're like, by the way,
he didn't know how to fly. And like I was telling you earlier, like he's a handyman in his area now, and he just does it. And he's like literally has this 5-minute like circle, right? Unless I fly him out to Georgia. So we went out and we flew out into this house, and I totally forgot. And this dude, he's got like tons of keys in his pocket, like he's got
knives and stuff or what?
Oh, he didn't have a knife, luckily, but I wouldn't have been surprised because he does. Like, but it was like he goes to the beeper. And he didn't take his shoes off. Like, dude, I totally know because I fly a lot, so I totally forgot to tell him. It was the funniest thing. But that was actually, it was just a fun experience, even though like, hey, we're physically doing labor, I'm running to the store, I'm doing all that stuff, and he's working with my guy and but it's super fun when you have the freedom, you're able to do that. And we lived at the house, and it was kind of gross.
That sounds fun, man. Like to me, I come from the Midwest where like I was doing the same thing. My stepdad is our main handyman. Like there's a part of me that loves like just getting dirty and doing the work, and like especially alongside Jeff. All three of us have gone up many times. And you know what? A lot of times I hear people say like true happiness isn't really about the money. It's about like the relationships and like family. Well, we've combined both. Like we're making millions on real estate with our friends and family. It's like that's like such a cool thing to do,
Yeah, I would say to add to that is like, I would say the relationships that I'm able to build, including my sister and stuff, right? It's more than the enjoyment I get from the wealth stuff, because for me it's all about people.
The fact that Tanya is now like, she's making money, like, and she's earning it. That's just
your mom is doing fucking setting up Airbnbs. Your dad's always here.
I got my mom setting up Airbnbs with me, but like this third one, we'd go in, she'd get a cart, I'd get a cart, and we would just go crazy in Target or Michael's.
I know
this a blast, dude. It was so fun.
I know this might sound crazy. I definitely spend more time with his stepdad and probably his mom than him.
This is
like his stepdad is here every day.
This is actually true.
He's probably in the backyard right now doing gardening.
He walks over at 3 o'clock because I lived here right after I got back from my 5-week trip in Mexico. I was here for a couple of months, and I'd be like, I never seen my stepdad more in my life.
Yes.
The guy that you guys always post on Instagram?
Yes. That's how famous he is. That's him. Sleeveless. And by the way, anyone watching, I'm wearing this is my Joe attire. Yeah. Joe always shows up to our stuff, just like board shorts and the tank. Today, he dressed up and put sleeves on today. This is my Joe.
Jeff is the famous guy from Hick and Curry.
Yes. He's the best. He's just such a great guy, man. And he just saves our butts. He's like our main guy in this, in the area.
But anyway, guys, that's what we're talking about, is getting family and friends involved, and it's just fun. It's fun. It's just fun.
Like literally, I was like posting about like our thread with Jeff, between me, Jeff, and you is like ridiculous. We're just trolling each other the whole time. But like we're getting business done like that. Yeah. Why can't you have a good time while you're doing work? Yeah. Like that.
I mean, a lot of people say don't get involved like family and friends. This is probably not a really good business advice, but I only do deals with very, very close friends and family.
Yeah, that's actually real.
Yeah, that's like even the people who come to our meetups, like Michelle and Cheryl. I love Cheryl, right? And Steve and and Kenny. I only know them from the meetups.
We've known all those people for at least a year before we do anything with them.
2 years,
and then we go full partner. So that's great.
Have you thought about investing in real estate and taking advantage of all of those benefits without any of the work? That is something that OnV Invest not only provides, but has been providing since its inception. With friends and family, we have built an empire in a system of a wealth generating tool that is giving us and our friends and family that leverage in their life to create true wealth. Go to onvinvest.com for more to see if you qualify. And thanks for listening.
But anyway, I want to keep going on your stuff. So we're now in 2020, 2021, and you're doing the Atlanta deals now, and they're still buy and holds, right?
Yeah, so those were kind of like what people call burrs, I guess.
Sure, yeah.
now, you know.
Those are
But
bursts.
yeah, I mean, those are honestly my favorite, you know. But like that one I was talking about, my dad and I went and worked on, you know, and that's probably what helped the numbers, you know,
A little
honestly.
bit, yeah.
You know, got it for 138, but it only cost 24 grand for us to fix it up because he and I did the work along with my other guy and my friend's dad. We all kind of worked on it together. Obviously, I paid my dad still. I paid our other
Nice.
worker, handyman guy, and you know, included the flights and our food and everything like that. But then did a cash out refinance DSCR. $1,000 a month, you know, 1,007, I think it is, and renting it out for $1,800 a month. You know what I mean? And got all of our money back.
That's amazing.
We could have taken out more actually because it appraised for like 226.
So you're just domino affecting at this
Well,
point.
it made too much sense, right? You know, it was like, oh shoot, you know, and of course my buddy's dad invested with me on that one as well. So we split it.
That's great.
And then we got our money back, and then we got another one at the beginning of last year. And that one we actually only put in a couple $1,000s because the guy had rehabbed it, but I got it for 170 and it appraised for like 230 or 240, something like that. You know, and just rented it out right away and did a DSC.
So how many of these do you have in Atlanta now or Georgia market?
So 3 rentals.
3 rentals.
3 long-term rentals in that same town in Noonan, and then have currently just closed on one a couple Fridays ago that was a flip, and then did another flip a couple months prior to that, and then have 3 that are currently under construction that are all flips. So I'm really trying to grow like this flip business in Atlanta to, you know, hopefully like, I mean, my business partner on that one is a different business partner and they want to grow to like 20, you know, and our goal is to make like 30 grand a piece, you know, so they make 30 grand on each one. I make 30 grand on each one, and I'd be happy with that.
Yeah.
You know,
that's great.
And then,
and the value you're bringing to that is you're bringing the money.
So they're bringing the money. So the business partners that I have are bringing the money and or bringing people who have money. They used to be one was a bonds trader on the New York Stock Exchange, and the other one was a stock trader.
Nice.
So you're
bringing the people with the money. Where's your value, Joe? What are you doing? Is it free money?
It's all looks.
It's the beard.
I'm just me. Yeah, I'm selling myself. But basically, I have the team that I've created and the system, and also I'm finding the deals most of the time.
I see. Okay.
You know, I'm trying to teach these agents. Helping me find the deals, but I'm putting everything together. Like the first one that we did, for example, I have my wholesaler found me this project, and because they knew I'm in Georgia now because I was doing these other deals. Hey, you want to buy something in Atlanta?
Yeah, become that guy.
Oh, I got this house in Atlanta for 135 grand. I'm like, you could put 40 grand into it and sell it for like, you know, 250. Well, we ended up putting 60 grand into it and selling it for 300. Wow. And these people saw that and they're like, holy crap. You know, and so now we literally closed on that deal on a Monday and closed on another one on a Friday with the same money. They just put it right in.
So these guys, you're bringing money in, I'm going to assume they are lenders and not partners?
No, we actually partnered up.
Partnered up. So you're splitting the profits.
I am splitting the profits. Okay. And, you know, the only reason I did that, and a lot of people are like, oh, are you giving up so much? And I'm like, you know what? Because I love them like they're my parents. Honestly, they've been out here visiting in LA recently for a real estate event, and we're going to be going, and they're going to be coming back out here again for another event, and we're going to be going and meeting in Georgia at the end of July. And because I could see the potential of how this can grow, you know, and it's like, if I would have been greedy and I would have said, oh, I'm just going to give you 10, 15% on your money, it might have not grown as much. And now we created a business. So we started a company, have a business credit card, and working on getting another one. And now we're trying to grow it to doing 20 a year. It's like, okay, now because I wasn't greedy, now we can grow this to something way more massive than them, because they're like, well, we're not going to invest any other money, or we're not going to have our friends or our family or whoever their connections invest any money into other people's deals because they want to work with me, because now we've created something that's greater.
Now we're going to do a fun thing I just made up in my brain. It's called Deal or Not. You guys ready?
Okay.
So you're going to tell me the last flip you did, and you're going to give me all the numbers, and I'm going to tell you if it's a deal or not for you and your partners. Ready?
Oh, okay.
This is going to go viral, guys.
Okay. All right. So go.
The last deal. It's got to be the last deal.
Like the last one sold or last one bought?
Sold.
Sold.
Because so then we'll have the full deals, full
Oh man.
numbers.
Oh no. Because
He's on the spot.
this is because that's the worst one I've ever done in my life.
No, we already talked about that one. We can go to the one before that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do that one. Yeah.
All right. So what was the purchase price?
Okay. 135.
135. And then what did you think the rehab would be?
40.
You thought the rehab would be 40, and then what did it end up being?
Well, but you want to ask what did I think that the ARV was going to be?
Yeah, ARV.
Okay, so we were thinking the ARV was going to be 250-ish,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So rehab ended up being 60,
Okay.
but ARV ended up being 300.
Oh, so you made up.
Spread.
Okay. And then what was so all in cost, holding cost?
Yeah, I included all the holding costs and everything like that because
In the 60K?
yes, because those business partners that I had brought all the money, so I didn't have any costs.
Okay.
You were
To
paying them
the
interest?
money. No, because I gave them half.
So what was the timeline on this?
4 months.
Okay.
And that was including 1 month of the tenant not leaving, but that was okay because
fine.
I had been working on another project at
Sure.
the same time.
So you're all in for 195K?
Yes.
And you only
sold it for 3, or would you sell it for?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So 3, and then minus the 6% of closing costs, right? For agent fees and everything like that.
So 6%, 5% is 15, 6. Let's say 20K.
Yeah.
So so you're in it, you sold it for 280, then let's say.
Mhm.
280 and you put in 60K?
Yep.
And then
Bought it for 135.
135,
So it should
135,
come out to
60,
around
195. So
like
almost
like
80 grand, 85 grand,
70-ish,
75 grand.
75 grand.
What about taxes though?
No, that's different though. Yeah, because
Yeah.
you're talking about income taxes.
You're flipping it, right?
Well, yeah. So, okay. So this is actually a good point that you bring up. And this is why we're actually, so on one of the other flips I did, I used that company that I had through Georgia over 2 years. If you have it over 2 years,
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to pay those taxes, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this company, for example, yes, we had a little bit. So that's why it kind of settled out to around the $75,000 because you have the option to pay the taxes at the closing instead of dealing with it later. It's really weird.
Oh,
It's really
okay.
weird.
So that's built in. The taxes
It is built in.
Oh, okay.
And so going forward now, we're actually going to start a different LLC for Georgia. And eventually, once we get to the point of having it over the 2 years, then we can actually say we have a company in Georgia and therefore we're going to pay less in taxes or nothing.
Okay, you guys are complicating this way too
sorry.
much.
Deal or not.
So deal or not. So first I'm going to ask Drew, what do you think? Is it a deal or not? So total cost was 60K and they made a profit.
I already
of
said yes.
75K. So you're saying yes. And then I'm going to say it's a big deal. You know why? Because you're going to, percentage wise, it's 100%, right? But it's not 100%. It's actually 300% because it didn't, percentages are calculated per annum. And this was only 4 months.
Mm-hmm.
So which means you can triple it. So it's a 300% return on the money, which is insane. Now it's a 50-50, I'm assuming. So then
cut in half.
So cut in half, they're
Right.
still making,
That's still insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think we got like
150% return.
300 or 34,000 each or something like that.
Yeah, that's really good.
Is really what it was. And so that's why obviously they got excited and we want to do more, and that's why I'm trying to be picky on the deals that I do, especially right now.
Yeah, so I did mention, so the reason I was giving you guys a hard time about the taxes is even though, let's say it's taxed at 50%, right? So like the way we do deals, he has a bunch of other crap going on. So he could buy a short-term rental and do a cost seg and just wipe out all of the taxes. So you can get around it. Only if you have real estate, which we do, so you can get around it. So that's one. And yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good deal. That's a really good deal. And the other thing I wanted to mention was you didn't mention that it's a partner. So I just want to briefly tell the listeners what the difference is. So a lender means you are a debt partner, which is like a bank, right? So you do not participate in the upside, but also you don't participate on the downside because if you don't give them the money, they'll put a lien on the house and they'll take everything he has, right? So they're covered. Now, an equity partner, which like how Drew and I are, he participates in all of the upsides, but he also has to participate in the downside.
Mhm.
Otherwise, he's not a fucking partner. He's just a guy who he's like a lender, right? So that's the pros and cons. But nobody has gotten wealthy from having like a lender situation. You only get wealthy if you're an equity partner. You either own stocks or those kind of stuff. So that's the
Yeah, and this all came easily overnight. You just did this on your first try.
Oh yeah.
Just to be clear, everybody, just so you guys know.
Yeah, I just wanted to go through all of the stuff. Do you have any other homes that you bought in after the Huntington Beach house, other than the Big Bear in Huntington Beach and the 3 in Riverside?
Yeah, yeah. So I taught my now wife how to get into the game. She, obviously it's ours now, but she got something up in Big Bear actually as well, because I told her that you either buy something out of state or you buy something in Big Bear, because she's a nurse. She makes really good money. She was able to qualify for a condo in Huntington, but it was just stupid, ridiculous. The numbers just didn't make sense because of her, where she was renting was such a good deal. So she actually did something that I haven't even done yet, is a second home loan, and this is something that I really want to bring up, because I think this is very important to people who are listening, is that even if you don't own a home, you could still buy a second home. She was renting an apartment, but because she was able to qualify for her portion of rent, as well as for the new payment, she was able to only have to put 10% down. So nice. I found a sick deal up in Big Bear for $256,000, and so again, fortunately, my dad and I do a lot of the work. She did some sweat equity as well. She pulled out all the carpet herself with my knee pads on, and it was a pain in the butt, pulled out all the staples out of the, the stairs. But she got this house. She ended up paying over asking, even though because it was 234, she ended up paying 256 for it.
Shout out to Shannon.
Oh, dude, she's killing.
She's buff as hell. She'll fuck you up.
She's just, but it goes back to taking action. Like what we've talked about is like, she took action. You know what I mean? Obviously, she had a good person to kind of like
she learned,
show her. Yep. But she took the action and did it. But she only had to put 10% down, and then she paid the closing costs, and then we fixed it up and then turned it into an Airbnb. Now it's worth over $100,000 more than what she paid for it. She hadn't even had it 2 years now, and she was able to write off the closing costs, the interest, some of the maintenance on the house, so that kind of helped mitigate her taxes. So it's about the overall picture, right? So not that I bought this one in particular, she bought it all under her own, but it's something that is very important to kind of like tell people, like there's so many different ways that you can do things, right? So there's that one, but I also have a couple in Ohio, and those kind of coincided around similar time of Georgia, but that was with a different partner. So we bought an 8-unit apartment building that was kind of already running, but in disheveled. And then we bought a duplex that was just a complete piece of shit, excuse my language, but bought it for $45,000, but we had to put on $135,000. And this is another thing, like going back to people and the human aspect of things. There was a husband and wife living there. They had it. It was a duplex. They turned into a single family, but the lady was like bedridden. Husband was a piece of work, and literally, like when we sold the house, left her in the house. And her dad was so happy that house was sold, because she at least had some money from it to get her out of this situation. And so, I mean, there was so much trash in the basement, you couldn't even see if there was a dead body in there. But I found an awesome project manager who was our property manager. She did a great job, and she fixed up this place and turned it into a duplex. We did a cash out refinance because we paid cash for everything. Did a cash out refinance, got our money back, and rented it out. I mean, it's not making $1 million, but hey, it's literally a free house. It's got built-in equity, and now it's gained in equity.
So it's like his total spend on it is like 200 grand. What is it worth, and what does it bring?
So it's we spent like 176, 175-ish, we did this is when rates were going up. So payment ended up being 1,300, but we're renting it for like 2,300 and some change, Now we're fixing up one of the rooms currently to try and rent just one of the rooms for 13. And then we're going to talk to the upstairs tenants and try and figure something out. But, things always are going to keep on
Yep.
going up and
Yep.
making.
I was going to ask how the appreciation is because I hear in Ohio it's in general not significant.
That is correct, and it is not significant. But but this goes back to what I was saying on the buy, because we bought it from my wholesaler for $45,000,
But
and it was
equity.
a piece of shit,
Yeah.
And we fixed the money up, and now it's like, and honestly, this is another interesting thing is that our property manager, she's like, if you turn this into a single family home, actually, which is really weird. This is weird to think of, the fact that it would be worth way more as a single family big home than a duplex. But there's some single family homes that are selling in that area that are big like this in the 300s, and so it's like, because we don't owe very much on it. You know what I mean?
But it probably won't cash flow anymore, right? If you did change it.
Well, this would just be to sell and get the money and move it somewhere else.
And what city is it in? Cleveland?
It's in Mount Vernon. So it's about like 40 minutes outside north of Columbus.
Okay, I know Columbus.
Yeah, and Columbus is growing crazy. Yeah. So,
and the 8-plex, where is that?
That one we actually ended up selling.
Nice.
And that was up in Sandusky, Northern Ohio. Another thing I would tell people, be careful where you invest and when it comes to weather, because that thing got beat up like crazy by weather. We literally had a window blowout of one of the apartment units because the wind was so gnarly. But we ended up selling that because we're doing the pad splits now. So going into, the next kind of thing, the newest thing is the pad split. So we ended up selling that 8-unit and turning that money into buying a pad split. We bought a 4-bedroom, 2.5-bathroom house in Jacksonville, turned it into a 10-bedroom, 3-bathroom. And it's like going back to what we were talking about, helping people affordable housing. So we have 4 of those now.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
4 properties where you're doing pad split.
So 2 10-bedroom.
Interesting.
1 6 and 1 5.
Where is it? You own it or arbitrage?
No, we own these. Yeah.
Where is it?
Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh, nice, man. That's cool. Yeah.
That's where like my main business partner.
I hope the good spot of Jacksonville.
Well, they're all kind of they're all like around,
really?
but yeah, I mean, it's a decent, and they do really well, because we're renting out each room between, $700 and $800 a month.
Where in the quadrant, if you split it by 4, is it top right, top left, bottom right?
So if you're looking at Jacksonville in the circle, it's going to be over here, like over here on the left, and then the right, because the top is not.
It's not good. I'm very familiar with Jacksonville.
You are? Okay,
yes,
okay, yeah.
That's
I know so much about Jacksonville.
I tried to buy an apartment building there.
Okay, yeah. Jake lives there. My business partner. I do,
nice.
The Land Shark Financial Freedom Podcast. Shout out. So he lives there. So he's very familiar.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Boots on the ground.
That's cool, man. Hey, man, we only got 10 minutes left.
Sure.
We got another call, but I wanted to talk a little bit about this, and I'll give our own story on it too. But I noticed that over the years that a lot of the deals that you bought were personally funded by you. And, I wanted to hit this. This is very important to me. And, people who are listening to is, you managed to continuously save money and reinvest or invest in the newer properties. It is very, I'm from India and I come with a lot of money. And, it's very easy for people here to spend all of the money they have on like just living like a king and, not having that funds. I wanted you to talk a little bit about how important it is to live below your means and save the next seed money to buy the next property. Because if you don't do that, people wanted to take it for granted. Like, oh yeah, I can afford. Yeah, you can, and just afford to rent. That's nothing to flex on, right? So I want to talk about that.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting thing that you bring up because I've got a great story about this. So when I was in high school, actually, I used to sell waters at school. I used to sell the sandwiches that my mom used to make for me at school, and I used to pocket that money and put it into my dresser in my top drawer. And I don't know why. Maybe it's just because the way that my parents taught me about the value of the dollar, but I've just always been the type of person to save money. Like I said, I mowed lawns, I recycled cans and bottles. I mean, I used to dig through the orange groves in Riverside, with my dad and pick up, the cans and bottles. Like I used to go through the dumpster in college. I went to school up in San Luis Obispo and, but the thing is that if you try not to live like everybody else and everything around you, and like what, especially now with these kids, like seeing everything on Instagram, right? And buying the expensive car, but then you're living in an apartment, right?
Or you're living in the car.
Or you're living in the car.
I recommend living in the car.
Yeah. And so it's like, I think the most important thing is to have goals. And like my mom always said, is like, having, a dream with a goal is a dream with a deadline, basically. And so if you don't have a deadline to it, then you're never going to be able to achieve it. So I had this poster on my refrigerator, basically. My goal was, I literally wrote on it, and I said I want to buy a house at the beach by the time I'm 30. And that was my goal. I got a little bit like at 29, whatever, and it's like, it's not about gloating, but it's about making sure that you are actually like trying to set some goals that are attainable, but also moving towards those goals. And those things are going to be, not spending your money on stupid stuff, right?
Yeah.
And going out and blowing your money on, like drinking and girls and,
Hey,
My two favorite things.
I know. I knew this was going to hit a sore spot, but I mean, honestly, like I don't know if you guys know much about my story, but I used to be, out there living in the world. And honestly, I feel like I did really well, but I would have done a lot better if I wasn't wasting my time doing some of these things in the world. And I came back to Christianity, and I started living more accordingly. And that's honestly why I feel like I got married, because I was not meeting the right people, because I was not being the right person myself. And so I started kind of shifting my gears and living more accordingly to the Bible and the way, that God intended us to. And I'm not saying that everybody has to do that, but it definitely does kind of help with your focus on certain things, because you could really start focusing. And honestly, I think that's what really helped me take off even more. Not saying that is the way it is, because there's evil people that do really well too. But yeah, definitely, saving your money and being smart with it and being intentional is one thing that's really going to help you get to the next level, or a level that you want to be at, right? So think where you want to be 5 years from now and work your way backwards. And that's something that I always tell people, because they always keep on asking, like, how do I get where I want to get?
Work.
Like
work.
Yeah,
I find a lot of people just don't want to do the work, and they feel like if they ask questions and they're going to these seminars, that it's like, it feels good, like they're making progress. But then you follow up with them in a year and they're like, yeah, well, I'm still saving, and I got my LLC going. All right.
Yeah. Well,
Whatever you're doing.
That's a good thing that you bring up too, though, because it's like, you not only have to save and be smart with your money, but you also have to take action as well. Because it's not always about saving. It's about doing what you have, like putting your money to good work, right? You know what I mean? So if I never spent that $6,800, and when I got started, I mean, that may have been a lot of money to a lot of people at the time, but it's like, holy cow, that turned into millions and millions of dollars, because action was taken.
Yep. I wanted to expand a little bit on this delayed gratification thing that Joe was talking about, and I want to give our own spin on it too. With Drew and I, we have very different levels of delayed gratification. But, I wanted to say, like, when we started buying real estate, we started in Bakersfield, and people will just laugh at us, like, on our face for like years. Like,
it's like, your parents were like conservative, thinking you're crazy. That was us in Bakersfield.
And then people will be like, oh, really? If you have so many properties, why are you renting a 2-bedroom in like Costa Mesa? And I was like, you don't really understand what we're doing. And then we bought $2 million homes in 2022, a street from each other. And they were like, wait, hold on a second. Like, what's going on now?
That's when people started walking me like, hey, this is a nice house.
But
I'm like, this is like my 20th house.
Yeah.
Like, I was telling you 5 years ago, like, to get in the game.
But the thing is not to say that we have those things. It is just to say that we had to do that for 4 years. We're just living under our means and, spending time and improving our properties, how, inflation, equity, and all those things work. And we were able to move that money here. Even now, Drew would prefer to live by himself. He can, but it'll cost him a lot more money because the homes that we live in is very expensive.
It's a long-term play.
It's a long-term play, and it doesn't have to be forever. But what that buys us is we're able to live in these nice homes with guys I like. I live with Robbie and Ryan. Ryan, my roommate, he's a trash panda from my videos. He owns 2 properties with us in Tennessee. He's killing it. And he's a roommate, and people are like, oh, he's just a roommate. No, he's like one of my good friends.
He has more net worth than most of my friends.
Which is insane, right?
Well,
and he's a server.
Yeah, well, and it's funny you say that because it's this is something that I didn't bring up earlier, I don't think, but it's the same thing. It's like getting uncomfortable, right? You know, like people are always like, oh, why are you like living with roommates and all this stuff and everything like that? I mean, I did that my whole freaking life until I got married. I don't care, but because people don't want to get uncomfortable to go to the next level, right? Like,
you had a certain goal in mind, and that's huge, you guys, is find the deeper why. It's never about like, well, I want the money. It's always like a thing. For me, it was freedom. Yeah. I have a very similar story of like working from a young age. My whole thing was just freedom. Like I bought my own car at like 15, just driving around illegally. Oh yeah. But that's still why I work so hard, is to like, we're going to go to this trip to Europe, and I'm probably going to stay for a little bit longer. And the fact that I have got to a place where I can do that is, I don't take it for granted. And so my big advice and the takeaway for everybody listening is find your why, and then just start, and then prepare to work your ass off for it. I know we kind of glazed over a lot of your journey, but I know that there was a lot of like nights where you questioned everything, where you were just like stressed, where you were just like putting in 12-hour days and sweating it. I know that happened, and that's happened with us, and that's just part of it, you guys. So my advice at the end of all this is pick your why, and then figure out how you can bring value. And if you don't want to do any of that hard work or research, find someone great to partner with who will do it, and then get you great returns and have that relationship. That's it. Those are your only 2 options.
Yeah. Get around people who have visions that, like get around people who have something going on and who don't criticize you. Like I've never seen like Grant Cardone is never going to criticize me for like, oh, you only have 5 houses. Like he's not going to do that. Right. But people who don't have it might criticize you for something. So just get around people who do that and see if you can get with people who can push you to do those things. Right. It's very hard to have hard conversations with people that you love and trust. So sometimes I have to have really hard conversations with Drew, sometimes with my sister, my dad. But if you don't have those conversations, they're not that important to you. That's what that means. If you're not willing to have a hard conversation, you're always telling them like, oh, you look great and I'm 100 pounds overweight. Drew's not my friend. He's like, he hates me. That's what that means. So, you want to have those things, have the, like when I bought this home, I was telling Drew, dude, just give me like another year. I'll buy another house with the money that we have. And you had money to go buy like some 2-bedroom. And I went and looked at those houses. I'm like, this is a loser house. Like, don't do this crap.
Loser house.
And then he was like, fine, I'll give you 6 months. And at the end of 6 months, his house is arguably maybe 5% better than mine. Like, I don't know.
It's better.
He's willing to do that because he trusts me and he's doing that. So just get around people, like Joe, his wife trusts you. She bought the house in Big Bear, right? Yeah. Very important.
Yeah. But also, I mean, I think the biggest theme is the delayed gratification. Yeah. Like I've never watched this guy walk in with a Rolex. You're always just like chilled out, dressed down, saving up for the next deal. Granted, he's got a boat. Hey, just so you know.
Oh, but that's on flipping too. So during COVID, I was kind of like, I bought a boat and then I sold it for double, and then I bought a couple jet skis and then I bought this one, and I'm like, I really like this one. So I ended up keeping him for a little bit longer. Nice. Even though like I could sell it for more than I paid for.
Next podcast is on a boat.
How many people can you host on this boat? 8. Maybe we could do like a private, like a thing there. Dude, that would be cool. Investor thing. Yeah. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. All right. Next podcast on the boat.
Yeah. We got a coaching call in about 2 minutes, but Joe, did you want to plug anything that you got going on your podcast? You're like, what's going on?
Yeah. So if you guys want to check me out, you could check out Landshark Financial Freedom Podcast. You can check me out on Instagram as SoCal Traveler. And, if you guys want to invest in another property, I mean, I know these guys are looking for investors as well, but maybe we can do something all together, and we can do a flip. I'm currently looking for some properties. I just put 7 offers in the other day. So
Nice.
currently looking for another flip to work on, and looking for people who want to make double-digit returns on their money backed by real estate.
Yeah. Shout out to Amy Majuri for that script.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Can't take that one.
Yeah.
But I'll also tell people too, like if you're a parent listening, I would encourage you to teach your kids on how to invest and or teach them the value of the dollar.
Awesome, guys. Thanks for listening. Thanks, Joe, for coming on. We'll do a part 2 later.
Super fun.
I don't know about you, but I definitely like to see 5-star reviews on any service or any product before I purchase. Please take a second to leave us a 5-star review, whether you're listening to it on Apple, iTunes, or Spotify, or whatever platform. Take a second, goes a long way, helps us a lot to grow the channel, and thanks for listening.